we interrupt this real-time recorded with a news flash. I think it's the first time, Zeus, that we actually recorded earlier this time because we wrapped up after Enterprise Connect, and we have another story.
We do. I'm sure everybody's seen it by now, but Five9 shareholders pretty unanimously nixed the proposed merger with Zoom. I was looking at the data, Dave. It was like almost 40 million against and only 12 million for. So I think the shareholders spoke there that they didn't want this deal to go through. And I must say, I'm not surprised, just given the, just given all that's gone on and where the stock prices are now. And in some ways, it's a bit of a lesson, right? Like the way the deal was structured, both companies have highly volatile stock prices. And then they came up with a deal that was oriented around a stock swap. And so you're trying to do a stock swap with two companies with volatile stock prices. In some ways, you're almost asking for this to happen, I would think.
Yeah, you covered it on No Jitter, I covered it on Talking Points. There's a lot to say here. I think bottom line, though, is, this is a weird one. It's disruptive if they do merge, and it's disruptive if they don't. I think that the fact that they don't merge, we've got like a loaded gun out there. We know that Zoom is willing to get into CCaaS. They know they're willing to spend a lot of money. Not quite as much as Five9 wanted, but a lot of money to get into CCaaS. We know that Zoom can develop very quickly from past experience. We know that they're able to acquire. So there's a loaded gun over there. And then all eyes are on Five9. Are they going to acquire companies and move into other adjacencies? And there's a lot of adjacencies they can move into, which I highlighted. Or are they going to be acquired? I mean, there's just there's a lot of stuff going on here, a lot of moving parts. And so this story is by no means over.
Yeah, I think Zoom will do something. Whether they want to, I pointed out my No Jitter post. 8x8 would be only 2.8 billion market cap, right? For $4 billion, they could probably take them out and still get the CCaaS functionality. It'd be hard for me to see Five9 being an acquirer, just because the contact center buyers don't really stray outside their purview as far as other things that they buy. So for them, leveraging their install base would be much more difficult than, say, Zoom doing that. But we'll see.
Well, they've already done like 3 acquisitions in just the past couple of years. But the thing is, their stock was artificially down. I haven't checked their stock today. Have you checked their stock today?
Yeah, it was only up about 4%, I think.
Okay, well, I think it's going to be heading up pretty consistently over the next few weeks as it reestablishes its freedom from Zoom, because it was tethered to the Zoom share. So I think they're going to find themselves with deeper pockets and able to acquire. There's lots of adjacencies they can move into. Certainly they can move into UCaaS. I can see them grabbing somebody like a 2600 Hertz or something like that. I can see them following Twilio's footsteps down the customer data platform path and maybe go move into that space. They could acquire an SI to move into more European service delivery capability and installation capability. There's a lot of things they can do, but we also wonder, because companies like Salesforce and Microsoft, they also saw Zoom attempt this, and I have to imagine it rang some bells over there. Maybe they want to do something too, and maybe they want to do it with Five9.
Yeah.
Well, let's get back to our previously recorded, real-time recorded, and we'll see you soon.
Hello, everybody. I'm Zeus Caravallo from ZK Research, and it's time for week 39 of real-time recorded. Dave, we're over two-thirds of the way through the year, I guess, now, and this was Enterprise Connect Geek. It was finally here.
The equinox. We just had the equinox. The days are getting shorter now.
Oh, yeah, summer's over. Well, the days have been getting shorter since the end of June, so I really hate that. But it's autumn now, which means it's time for virtual Enterprise Connect. Hopefully, we'll do the live one in March. But what were your thoughts from the event?
First off, I have to say it exceeded my expectations. When they announced, with 4 weeks before the event that they're going to go virtual, it's like, oh my gosh, this is going to be
12 days before.
12 days, yeah. It's like, oh, this is going to be a disaster. But it actually totally exceeded my expectations. I thought they pulled off a great event. I attended a number of the sessions. I thought they were really good. I thought the technology was good. So all that was great. Of course, what we go to Enterprise Connect for is a lot of the meetings and sidebar conversations, and that was harder in a virtual environment. But that's really the same thing as we're dealing with in the office place, right? When people work from home, go to the office, we have no problem attending meetings. We have no problem actually working. What we're missing at home and at conferences is all the other stuff. And so it's a problem that we still need to solve as an industry. But I thought Enterprise Connect did a great job.
I like. I actually think the format they use works about as well as it can. In a virtual event, I still miss a lot of the in-person meetings, but the keynotes weren't a whole lot different live than they would be in person, and I think the ability to go back and watch the content later actually is a plus in some cases.
Well, I always do go back and watch them, even when we go to the live event. But the difference to me, and this is, I think, I'm going to suggest, Eric and Beth, that they don't allow this in the future. But the difference is all the keynotes were pre-recorded, and they were all done in studios, and they were all done fancier. I do like the live format, even if I don't watch it live and I play it back later. I do like that live format. It feels a little less. It feels more sincere when it's a live format, but I do enjoy a pause control, and I take a lot of notes during the keynotes, and I thought all the keynotes were great. I think we had more keynotes than usual, and they were all pretty good. And I would say some of them were kind of similar. I hate to say that because I know that people like you and I, we focus on how these companies are different, but a lot of their messaging at the high level is becoming very similar. They all talked about, meetings. They all talked about, actually put a lot of emphasis on voice. They talked about the Q&A features in their applications. They talked about, events. They talked about, I think at least three of the vendors were using the term inclusivity. I heard at least two of the vendors talking about making meetings better virtual than they are in person. So just a lot of the same stuff. Now, of course, there's a lot of differences in how they actually get there. So there are, but it just isn't clear at the keynote level.
Yeah, the underlying theme of the event, of course, was hybrid work, which makes some sense given where we are now. One of the things that I don't think we've still figured out, though, is how hybrid work gets actualized. I talked with Frank Katsudas, Cisco's C3PO, I guess is her title, Chief People Process and Policy, I think is an officer. And she was saying the struggle they're having is everyone's opinion of what's considered safe is different. So you can go to hybrid work and you can put it hot desking, but that means people are sitting beside each other, and some people aren't very comfortable with that. Some people want outdoor spaces, some people want flexible spaces, right? And so I think it's certainly good for the collaboration industry because a refresh of infrastructure is going to be required to do it. But I think before we can get there, there needs to be some kind of determination, at least at a corporate level, of what hybrid work looks like. And I think right now that we're so far away from that. Just every business leader I talk to just has really no idea how they can really put that in place and do it safely. So and make all their employees happy.
I felt a lot of the keynotes were a little too functionally oriented. How to make a call, how to make a meeting better. A lot of really great innovations in meetings. I don't want to belittle that, but a couple of the keynotes kind of stood out more about the workflow and being productive and getting things done. There was actually, Slack had some attention to Enterprise Connect, but Dreamforce was the week before. We didn't talk about it last week, but I thought what they demonstrated at Dreamforce with how they were using Slack with their customers was much more about workflow, and I liked that conversation. Saw a little bit of that from Vonage, actually. Vonage had a pretty good focus on conversations. They considered that the next big shift in communications is a shift toward communications or conversations. And they start with mainframes, client server, and they end up at conversations. And actually, RingCentral had a little bit of that too in their keynote.
And, Dave, Enterprise Connect, though, is always the event that many vendors use to launch new products, and that was no different this year. We had, 8x8 announcing Front Desk, and AWS had some updates. One of the more interesting ones, though, I thought was the release of TalkDesk Phone, which that itself isn't all that interesting, just, another phone system. But they are the first CCaaS vendor. Actually, that's not true. Edify, I guess, had done this a while ago. But the first mainstream CCaaS vendor to launch their own UCaaS product. And while this is just calling right now, I'm assuming there's more UCaaS things coming, and so
actually, I think they are. I think they are the first. When they made that claim, I examined it. Edify was always from day one UCaaS and CCaaS. So but as far as actually being a CCaaS company moving into telephony, I think their claim is actually legitimate. Depending how you define it, because you could also say that Five9 was first because they announced their acquisition with Zoom, but they're not there yet. They haven't launched anything combined. You could say InContact was first because they launched their partnership with RingCentral, and so it's a single provider story if you go through RingCentral, but it's not a single stack story. So there's a little bit of blurriness there, but I think it definitely puts a little more pressure on companies like Content Guru and Genesis to say, are they going to get into UCaaS or not? I think it's a legitimate question.
What I find fascinating about it is that those other partnerships that you announced, and even Five9 and Zoom was driven by Zoom, it's the UCaaS vendor that's taking the lead on the sales, right? That nobody sells more, there's no UCaaS vendor that sells more seats of contact center than Ring. They probably sell almost as many as some of the CCaaS vendors. And that's because, and we talked about this in the lock note a little bit, UCaaS vendors often dictate what CCaaS gets used, but very rarely does a CCaaS buyer actually care about UCaaS. And it's going to be fascinating to see with TalkDesk, even though they offer UCaaS, or at least calling, if people are going to buy it from them because they are a CCaaS pure play. So does this become a play where they take it to their install base and then they add on CCaaS, or is it used to sell calling and then they can use that as a backdoor into CCaaS? And that wasn't really very clear from a go-to-market perspective. So.
And I think TalkDesk is also being pretty careful not to call it UCaaS. You called it UCaaS a couple times. Yeah. You kind of correct yourself. It really is a telephony offer, and TalkDesk is positioning this as a replacement for premises-based PBXs. They're not really positioning it as a UCaaS offer for good reason. It doesn't have things like the video you would expect. I mean, I don't think you can to be in the Magic Quadrant report for Gartner and the UCaaS. They require video. They require text messaging. They require a lot of these things. And TalkDesk isn't even, competing in that space right now. It's a telephony offer, and I think there's merit to it. And we'll wish them luck, right?
Yeah.
So there was another interesting announcement at Enterprise Connect, which would in the contact center space, it actually involved 7 vendors, which was Google launched a new Google Chrome Enterprise recommended track for contact center as a service. And they picked 7 partners. And basically what this means is that they're positioning Chrome and Chrome OS as the primary solution or a fully supported solution for contact center as a service. And I think it's interesting the way Google's kind of inching into the contact center space. They were there fairly early with the CCAI, and then they've obviously got their platform, their Google Cloud platform, where some of these providers are hosting their services. But now they're getting into the endpoint. I think this is important for a couple of reasons. Actually, I'll say 3 reasons. One is it acknowledges the importance of browser-based as a client, a universal client. This is true of all of UCaaS and CCaaS. But, the only clients that we still really have, there's not very many left, right? We have WebEx, we have Teams, and we have Zoom. But those were all created before the end of the browser wars, before WebRTC was standardized. So you look at the newer solutions like RingCentral, 8x8, Vonage, they're doing all this stuff with just the web browser. And so the time is right to embrace the Chromebook as a thin client solution. And so that first one was browser-based. The second one is work from home. And it's a very low maintenance solution for work at home. And so Google featured some large deployments, thousands of agents that were set up on Chromebooks, within weeks. And so I think that's really important. And then the last point is what we've been talking about, what you've been talking about is the hybrid work. The Chrome environment is roaming, so you can, go between different devices. It's secure, it's fully encrypted, and it's easy to share, so hot desking, whatever. So I think it's a really interesting way for Google to kind of flex its muscles with the Chrome OS solution for CCaaS.
Yeah, but Google didn't do anything here except to certify them. right? The vendors did all the development. And I'm not sure why. I'd like to get your opinion on this. Why it matters I understand from a short-term perspective, it sort of validates that it works on on Chrome Enterprise and stuff like that. But there's lots of stuff that works on Chrome Enterprise, and Google doesn't go certify all of those, right? So why in this particular case does it need to be certified?
That's actually a really interesting question. I've been wondering, about the 7 vendors they listed, and what about the other vendors? And I know some of the vendors don't have Chrome solutions, and so that's one issue. In fact, I was actually really surprised about Genesys because their certified solution for Chrome was their multi-cloud, their solution that's more associated with premises-based or private cloud than their CCaaS solution, which was not listed. So I'm kind of like curious what's going on there. But I think the answer to your question is really around what they call the difference between Chrome and Chrome Enterprise, because a lot of solutions, probably you and I are both using Chrome, and that's free and easy to do, but Chrome Enterprise is actually not free, and it has some pretty extensive enterprise-appropriate features for IT that enable remote management, remote wipe, remote administration, and single sign-on, and they can control whether USB ports are active or not, and all kinds of capabilities on this on Chrome Enterprise. And so they're saying that these CCaaS partners have embraced to some degree Chrome Enterprise.
All right. Well, that makes sense, and I guess good for Google. They've been dancing around the contact center space for quite a while, so I think this gets them there a little more fully. So, anyways, that I think wraps us up for week 39, Dave. We should be back next week with week 40. We're moving into.
We're both on the road.
Yeah,
We'll see. We've been spoiled with these recordings pretty easily, but we're going to be seeing. You're going to be in Europe, and I got this thing up in Jackson Hole, so it'll be an interesting how we pull this together. But hopefully, we'll have a week 40.
Yeah, and we are moving into the fall season. That's typically when you start seeing more product launches from the vendors and industry events and things like that. So the kind of quiet period we had in the summer looks like it's rapidly coming to an end, just like our sunlight.